Right now, as many of you know, both writers and actors in Hollywood are on strike, and that's probably going to change very soon, but let's be precise. The Writers Guild of America is a union that represents over 11,000 screenwriters, and since May the 2nd, they've been on strike due to their disputes with the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers. The AMPTP includes basically all of the major producers from Disney to Sony and Warner Brothers. This also includes streamers like Netflix and Amazon. On the other hand, the Screen Actors Guild and American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, SAG-AFTRA, are striking against the same producers. The Actors Union represents like 160,000 people, and they started their strike July the 14th. So for the first time in a while, the actors and writers are striking. As to be expected, due to them not being able to reach an agreement, the industry looks a little different. Movies and shows have been delayed or left in limbo because writers aren't writing and actors aren't working, nor are they appearing on the promotional trail. The easy chicken shit generic position that will be adopted by anybody with a following is to side with the actors and writers. That ensures them the least amount of public backlash, and it's the safest position to take. This is because class struggle, like many other socialistic, collectivistic minded people, they find that attractive and will always side with the ones with less money. Fist in the air, backing the working class is what many people believe themselves to be doing. The employer is always evil and the employee is always the innocent party. This applies even when you talk about rich people and their struggles. Think about it with sports. We see this in like the NBA all the time. If there is a dispute, the owner or the league is always viewed as the bad guy. They are the problem in this equation, despite this conflict being between millionaires and billionaires. But forgive me if I don't take your word for it and think we need to dissect this issue. It's no secret I'm not a fan of unions. I think they're kind of gay, G-H-E-Y gay. This is because I understand the history of unions, especially in America. Most people foolishly believe that unions are generally good and are solely in place to protect the workers from abuse of their employer. Others think that we'd all be working 24/7 had it not been for the unions. This is ahistorical, and I'll give you an example. Some union clowns will probably tell you that modern workplace improvements are due to unions. However, Henry Ford did far more for workers, and it was absent of unions. In 1914, for strictly competitive reasons, Ford imposed 8-hour shifts, a little over 2 weeks of paid vacation, and a higher minimum wage. This was over 20 years before the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938. People wrongfully give unions credit for basics like an 8-hour workday when Ford did it long before, and he despised unions. But people thinking unions are great are saying it as a coping mechanism. Many people are being extorted by not only having to pay union fees, but also because the unions dominate their industry and make it almost impossible to exist in said industry without being members of that union. It's a lot easier to just say it's for your own good and you benefit than admitting that you had no real choice in the first place, which is hilarious because you can't talk unions in America without talking about their mafia ties. Many unions today still act in that same extortive manner while also being wings of the state. There's a reason why many of them fought for legislation back in the gap to prevent employers from hiring replacement workers should they go on strike. But I digress because this isn't supposed to be some anti-union video. Getting back to the point, what exactly are the complaints and demands of the unions? What are the specifics? Well, let's start with the WGA. They, of course, want more money. Their claim is that 49% of the WGA members are making the minimum rate and that writer pay has declined 14%. They say, including inflation, writer-producer pay is down 23%. So let's give context. Here are the most recent minimums. According to the recent numbers, the minimum for a screenplay with a budget of $5 million or more, it's around $145,000. For a budget below that, it's $77,000, give or take. If it's a week-to-week feature, it's a $6,300 a week thing. For TV, there are a lot more qualifiers, but as an example, a week-to-week gig is like $5,000 minimum. If it's Network prime time under 30 minutes, it's $27,000 a minimum for that gig. If it's under an hour, it's $39,000 or so dollars minimum. And if it's not prime time under 30 minutes, it's almost $16,000. And under 60 minutes, it's around $28,000 to $29,000. For things like streaming services, it has quite a few qualifiers as well. As an example, if it's between 20 and 35 minutes and between 1 to 2.1 million in terms of its budget, minimum it's almost $16,000, and that number increases the higher the budget and the higher the run time. As I've said, the minimums range, but you can get the general idea. These also aren't daily gigs, and even if they only spent next to no hours pumping it out, whatever that script may be, they still are expected to be paid that minimum. They also want better residuals when it comes to things like streaming. Here's the kicker. They already are getting residuals. They just want more on the front end and the back end. This seems more like a way to force the hand of producers so that they are more transparent with their streaming numbers. This actually may end up backfiring because, as we all know, streaming isn't that profitable for these studios. Regardless, the minimums they get right now don't even consider profit. It's percentage of general sales and payment for rights. Anybody that says this isn't about the money is lying. Almost all of the pattern of demands have to do with money in some way, shape, or form. Sure, there are some that are no-brainers. They want to address what they deem as abuses in the mini room, but nearly all of the bullet points, including the pension plans, have to do with money or protecting their money. They also, of course, discuss AI and want protections against its usage because they feel that'll put them out of jobs. So depending on what way you look at it, some make the argument that, considering the quality, these guys are making too much money. But let's move on really quick to the actors unions. What do they want? Well, SAG-AFTRA wants something similar. They worry about AI and want to regulate its use. Addressing streaming is a big point. The union wants at least 2% of all revenue, not profit, generated by these streaming shows. They also want higher minimum rates and 11% general wage increases. Despite this being a gig economy, they want better pensions and health care as such. SAG-AFTRA has much longer of a list of demands. But my position on these strikes differs from most. Most are so worried about taking a side, namely the side of the actors or writers. I don't look at it this way. Make no mistake, they both need each other, so they are going to reach a deal. Hell, maybe by the time you see this video, they will have reached a deal. Anybody that says this is a situation of working class versus mega corporation, though, is lying as well. The unions in this case are as pro-mega corp as anybody else. The more accurate way to assess this is that one side is begging for the access to the resources of the money holders. So ask yourself, if we are to believe that these production companies are the greedy devils, why on earth are they working so damn hard to make a deal with the devil? This is inexcusable. Now more than ever have the means been more affordable and decentralized. The internet has ensured more connectivity with like-minded individuals. If you have a great idea, you can connect with people to make dreams come true with a decent budget. And let these people tell it, we are dealing with the most creative, valuable people in the world. Yet for some reason, all the solutions require a deal with the devil. These geniuses have been unable to find a way to evolve from the current setup of entertainment. These people won't pull their resources together and come up with their own studios that are disconnected from the mega corporations. There has never been a better time than now to have that be the focus, yet this isn't even considered, and that shouldn't be ignored. Either these people aren't as competent as we're led to believe, or there is far much more to the story, possibly both. If these people spent their energy coming up with creative ways to correct the problems they have, they wouldn't need to beg for scraps from the devil. I can't give these people any leeway. Why? Because I did it. I saw a problem with the comic book industry. These issues were creative and economic. I didn't like the direction of the general content, and I don't like how creatives aren't paid on time, or they're paid very little. So I took a risk. I invested hundreds of thousands of my own dollars, and now we've made more than $6 million in sales in a year. And everybody here is paid competitively and on time. My contractors get the money almost immediately upon submission of their work. For our books, we have favorable bonus structures for our writers, and our employees get benefits. And should there ever be a problem, we can address it and pivot when needed. This is why our folks don't treat the Ripaverse like it's just some other gig. They scream it from the mountaintops that they work for this company. But the actors and writers in entertainment aren't trying to evolve from the unions or making deals with the megacorps. The other non-striking entertainers, like directors that cheer these people on, aren't coming up with creative ideas to evolve either or work with them. Here's the truth and why it's a match made in hell. The status quo, regardless of how much they complain about it, is much more preferable than the uncertainty that comes with independence. The mega corporations are the only entities that can assume that type of risk, lose millions and even billions of dollars, yet still pay these people even in poor performance. They are able to subsidize so many of these fake jobs, and that gives them a sense of importance. In the event that the entire industry is fundamentally changed, yet there may not be billion-dollar films ever again, the way we look at TV would be completely different. And to that I say, so what? That doesn't mean things wouldn't be extremely profitable. What it does mean is that many of you wouldn't make it on the other side because it'd be more merit-based. You'll also be forced to see the economic reality, and your pockets will be punished in the event you produce things that nobody wanted. You wouldn't be able to fail upwards like so many of you do. That's the one thing that I will agree with that unions are good for: protecting bad and mediocre people. Mega corporations are the only ones that can do that. These people are as pro mega corporation as anybody else, like I've said before, and don't let them get away with acting like this is some sort of working class bullcrap. If you all collectively decided to be detached from these mega corporations, your industry would change for the better. Funding shouldn't be an issue. The actors at the top of these unions have a lot of money, and if you can't, go crowdfund it or something. If people actually want it, they subsidize it, but that's not attractive, is it? It's much better, according to you, to have some institution that can spend $200 million on something that people don't want. So call everybody and their mother a scab because they aren't kissing the ass of the union. That won't change the fact that you refuse to be a part of this solution. Instead, you work to ensure the power of the billion-dollar corporations, and they know you need them to subsidize your bad ideas so that you don't assume much risk. The way of the future is decentralization. Instead of having billion-dollar corporations, you'd have million-dollar and $1,000 productions. Maybe it becomes more niche, and that's only a problem for those that don't really want solutions and are just putting on a performance for the public. Nobody on this side claims that it would be easy to do what I'm suggesting. I've done it already. There will be challenges, but at minimum, you can address your gripes. You can solve them instead of begging someone else, especially someone that you deem as evil and greedy, to embrace your ideals. Don't forget to check out my comic book company over at Ripaverse.com. After 2 multi-million-dollar campaigns, you can still get ISOM #1 and #2. Up next this fall is Alpha Core #1, written by one of the most prolific writers of all time, Chuck Dixon, and penciled by Joe Bennett. And if you can't wait for new content, go to our website right now and pre-order the first official Ripaverse hoodie. Y'all be easy.